Her fingers moved slowly, deliberately. Palm out, thumb tucked, fingers folded down. The woman gripping her wrist thought she was just stretching her hand. She had no idea that 12-year-old Amara was screaming for help without making a sound. Then she saw him. A mountain of a man in a Hell's Angels vest, arms covered in ink, standing by the pharmacy counter. Their eyes met across the crowded gas station, and in that moment, everything changed. Before we dive into this story, I need you to understand something. This didn't happen in some crime-ridden city you see on the news. This happened at a rest stop off Interstate 95, the kind of place families stop for bathroom breaks and snacks. Drop your city in the comments because what you're about to hear could happen anywhere. Your rest stop, your gas station, your daughter. Now let me take you back to where this began. To a girl who loved science and basketball. To a moment 3 months earlier that would mean the difference between life and death. Atlanta's West Side neighborhood was where Amara Thompson grew up, in a brick duplex she shared with her grandmother, Ms. Evelyn. Amara was 12 years old, all long limbs and curious eyes. She wore her natural hair in 2 puffs, had a gap between her front teeth, and could name every constellation visible from her grandmother's back porch. Ms. Evelyn raised Amara from the time she was 3, after Amara's mother disappeared into addiction. Ms. Evelyn worked as a home health aide, pulling long shifts that stretched her thin but never broke her. She packed lunches, checked homework, sat in the front row at every school event. They had each other, and that was wealth enough. 3 months before everything changed, Amara's school hosted an assembly about online safety. Officer Keisha Brown from the Atlanta PD stood at the front of the auditorium, her uniform crisp, her voice carrying to the back rows. "I want to teach you something that could save your life," she said, holding up her hand. "This is called the signal for help," she demonstrated slowly, palm facing outward like a wave, thumb tucked into the palm, 4 fingers folded down, trapping the thumb. This signal tells people who recognize it that you're in danger. You can use it on video calls if someone's making you uncomfortable. You can flash it from a car window. You can use it anywhere when you need help but can't ask out loud. 400 hands rose in the air. Palm out, thumb in, fingers down. Amara followed along, filing it away alongside other safety lessons. Look both ways before crossing. Keep your phone charged. Trust your instincts when something feels wrong. Within days, most students had forgotten about the signal entirely. But Amara remembered, because 2 months later, that forgotten gesture would be the only thing standing between her and a fate too terrible to imagine. Her name was Patricia Hendricks, and she looked like everyone's favorite aunt. 52 years old, with warm brown skin, silver-streaked hair in neat cornrows, and a smile that crinkled the corners of her eyes. She volunteered at the community center every Wednesday afternoon. She'd lived in the neighborhood for 8 years. She helped organize block parties. She brought sweet potato pie to church potlucks. She was everything a community wanted in a neighbor, which made her the perfect predator. Patricia had been watching Amara for months. She specialized in gaining trust, positioning herself as helpful, reliable, safe. She knew that single guardians juggling work and childcare were often desperate for support. She began offering Amara rides home from the community center, building a foundation of trust brick by careful brick. What Ms. Evelyn didn't know was that Patricia had a business, a terrible, lucrative business. She trafficked children. She operated with cold calculation, identifying vulnerable kids, gaining access to them, then selling them to buyers who paid premium prices. Her network was sophisticated: encrypted communications, offshore accounts, safe houses in 3 states. Amara was exactly what one of her buyers wanted. The buyer was willing to pay $40,000. Patricia had already received a down payment. All she needed was the right moment. That opportunity came on a Friday evening in late October. Ms. Evelyn was at work, dealing with an emergency. She called the community center, stressed and apologetic, explaining she couldn't pick up Amara until much later. Patricia volunteered immediately. She'd take Amara to her house. Ms. Evelyn could pick her up whenever she finished work. Ms. Evelyn hesitated. Something whispered caution. But Patricia had been so helpful, and she was so tired. She said yes. Patricia drove Amara away from the community center at 5:30, heading toward her house. Then she merged onto I-85 North. Amara noticed immediately. "Miss Patricia, This isn't the way to your house. I know, baby. I just need to make a quick stop first. Amara's instincts tingled. Can you text Grandma? Let me do it for you, honey. Texting and driving isn't safe. Patricia plucked the phone from Amara's hand with practiced ease. Amara's stomach dropped. Adults didn't just take your phone. Fear bloomed in her chest, cold and certain. They drove for 40 minutes. When Patricia finally pulled off the highway, it was at a rest stop near the Georgia-South Carolina border. I need to use the bathroom, Patricia said, her hand closing around Amara's wrist, not violently, but firmly, unmistakably. You're coming with me. Amara thought about running, but Patricia's grip was strong, and they were in the middle of nowhere, and she was 12 years old with no phone and no idea where she was. That's when she saw him. Marcus Doc Freeman had been riding motorcycles for 34 years. At 58, he stood 6'4", weighed 260, covered in tattoos that told stories most people wouldn't understand. The Hells Angels vest he wore marked him as someone most people crossed the street to avoid. Doc grew up in South Carolina, the son of a black father and a Puerto Rican mother. He joined the Army at 18, became a combat medic, earned his nickname Saving Lives Under Fire. When he came home carrying invisible wounds, he found family in the motorcycle club. Doc's chapter was different from the stereotype. They organized charity rides for children's hospitals. They showed up for veteran funerals. They protected communities that couldn't protect themselves. Doc ran a youth outreach program, teaching kids about motorcycle maintenance, giving them a legal path forward. He'd mentored dozens of young men, becoming a grandfather figure who showed up consistently, who believed in second chances. 3 years ago, a social worker taught Doc about the signal for help. He memorized it immediately. Palm out, thumb tucked, fingers down. He taught it to every kid in his program. Since then, he'd been watching, scanning crowds, looking for that one specific gesture. On that Friday evening, Doc was riding back from a veteran's funeral in Atlanta. He'd stopped at the rest stop to refuel when they walked in. A woman and a young girl. Nothing unusual at first glance, except everything was wrong. Doc's instincts cataloged the details in seconds. The girl's body language was completely off. She walked too carefully, shoulders rigid, eyes darting. The woman's grip was on the girl's wrist, firm, controlling. The girl's face showed fear poorly masked by forced composure. They passed within 10 feet of where Doc stood, and that's when it happened. The girl's hand moved, subtle, deliberate, palm facing out, thumb tucked into her palm, 4 fingers folding down, hold for 3 seconds, release, then again. The signal for help. Every instinct from his military training, every protective impulse converged in this single moment. That child was in danger. Doc made his decision instantly. He abandoned his coffee and followed them. Patricia pulled Amara into the women's bathroom. "We're going to freshen up," she said loudly. "Then we'll get back on the road." Inside, Patricia's mask slipped. Her voice went cold. "You try anything and it'll be worse for you." Outside, Doc positioned himself near the bathroom entrance. His phone was out, dialing 911. "I'm at the rest stop on I-85, mile marker 106. There's a child in danger. Black girl, about 12, pink jacket. The child made the signal for help." 5 minutes crawled by. The bathroom door opened. Patricia emerged, her hand back on Amara's wrist, walking fast. Doc stepped directly into their path. "Excuse me," he said, his voice deep and carrying. "Can I talk to you for a second?" Patricia's face went through several expressions: confusion, annoyance, fear. "I'm sorry, we're in a hurry. I just have a quick question." Doc's massive frame blocked the exit. Other customers were watching now. Amara looked up at Doc, and their eyes met. "Please," her expression said. "Please help." Doc saw her. He saw everything. "Actually," he said, his voice dropping low, "I saw the signal. I know what you're doing, and you have about 2 minutes before this place is surrounded by police." Patricia's hand released Amara's wrist involuntarily. "Get behind me, sweetheart," Doc said to Amara, his voice gentle. Amara darted around Patricia, putting Doc's massive frame between them. In the distance, sirens wailed. Patricia heard them too. She ran toward the back of the store looking for another way out. Doc let her go. His priority was the child now standing behind him. He turned and knelt. "You're safe now. What's your name?" Amara, she whispered. Amara, that was the bravest thing I've ever seen. You saved yourself. Your grandmother's going to be so proud of you. At the mention of Ms. Evelyn, Amara's composure broke. She collapsed against Doc's chest and sobbed while he held her like she was his own granddaughter. Police cars filled the parking lot. Patricia was found hiding in a storage closet, still carrying Amara's phone. What they'd find would lead to the collapse of a trafficking network that had destroyed dozens of lives. But none of that mattered to Amara in that moment. She was safe. She was going home. Ms. Evelyn arrived in a police escort, her hands shaking. When she saw Amara wrapped in a shock blanket, sitting next to the massive biker who'd saved her, Ms. Evelyn ran. "Baby, baby, I'm here!" They collapsed onto the pavement together, holding each other so tight it hurt. When Ms. Evelyn finally looked up at Doc, her face was streaked with tears. "You brought my baby back. You brought my whole world back to me." Doc shifted uncomfortably. "She's the hero, ma'am. I just happened to be paying attention." Ms. Evelyn shook her head firmly. "No, don't minimize what you did. You saw her, you acted, you saved her life." Patricia was arrested and charged with kidnapping and attempted human trafficking. Investigators uncovered a network spanning multiple states, evidence linking her to 17 missing children cases over a decade. She was sentenced to 40 years in federal prison with no possibility of parole. The story spread. The signal for help became part of standard safety curricula in schools across Georgia. Doc was interviewed once. He told the reporter firmly, "That little girl is the hero of this story. I just didn't look away." 6 months later, Doc received an invitation to Amara's 13th birthday party. He showed up with a basketball signed by the Atlanta Dream and stayed for cake. What developed over the following years was family. Doc attended her 8th grade graduation. He taught her how to change a tire. He showed up for her high school basketball games, his voice the loudest when she scored. Amara healed. She excelled in school. She played college basketball on scholarship. She became an advocate for trafficking survivors, using her story to educate others. At her college graduation, Ms. Evelyn sat in the front row with Doc beside her, both wiping tears as Amara walked across the stage to accept her diploma in social work. After the ceremony, Amara found them both. "I'm going to spend my life being what you were for me," she told Doc. "Someone who pays attention, someone who acts, someone who refuses to look away." This story isn't just about one girl and one biker. It's about the power of awareness and the courage to act when every instinct tells you to mind your own business. The signal for help is real. Palm facing outward, thumb tucked into palm, fingers folded down over the thumb. Teach it to your children. Make sure they know that if they ever need help and can't ask out loud, this gesture will tell the right people they're in danger. And if you ever see someone make this signal, don't look away. Call 911. Stay nearby. Be the witness that child needs. Never underestimate the power of paying attention. Never doubt that one person can make all the difference. And never forget that heroes come in all forms, even leather jackets and motorcycle boots. If you believe stories like this need to be heard, share this. Comment "Protect the innocent" if you stand with Amara and Doc and everyone who refuses to look away.